It feels like a mini Adobe Summit here. Welcome everybody to the 30 from prospect to patient, what your CX analytics is actually proven. Thank you all for joining. My name is Kevin Hack, Senior Vice President of Data Strategy and Analytics at the Adobe Gold Partner Qualified Digital. And I'm joined here today with Sandra Jones, Principal Product Marketing Manager at Adobe. Sandra, tell us a little bit about your role, what you do at Adobe, and then let's jump right in it because I know we all have very busy schedules and we got 30 minutes to get through all of it. Sandra, over to you.
Thanks, Kevin, and love a little Coldplay in the morning. That always gets you going. So my name's Andrew Jones. I'm on the CX Analytics product marketing team. I've been here for about 5 years at Adobe. I work out of the San Francisco office. Kevin, I think you're in the Bay Area too, so we're kind of close to each other. And so I focus mostly on customer journey analytics. And I've been involved recently in some of the newer releases with LLM Insights, which is really measuring AI, right? Measuring these new forms of the customer journey. And one of the capabilities we'll be speaking about a little bit later on in this session. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. Over to you, Kevin.
Thank you so much, Sander. Now, let's quickly give you a quick intro of who is Qualified Digital. Why are we uniquely qualified to help you with your journey analysis needs? We are an end-to-end experience company, so we bring together strategy, technology, data strategy, and creative, and are heavily focused on the healthcare and life science vertical. Senior level practitioners, hands-on delivery, ready to handle complex use cases, and an Adobe Gold partner. Thank you all for joining. Now let's take a look at the end-to-end patient journey. Starting with the good news first, like yes, the end-to-end patient journey is complex. It's not strictly linear. There's a lot of paths and subpaths, but it is measurable. Most health systems are simply not there yet. They just can't see it. But today we will go over through some very actionable steps and challenges and how to overcome those challenges to get closer to unlocking that end-to-end visibility. And on the other end, Adobe has built the HIPAA-ready analytics foundation. So from a technology and a capabilities point of view, we are able to tap into that and help us unlock the visibility. But along that journey, right, there's different challenges to overcome. And looking at the attendee list, we have a mix of like a payer and provider audience, right? So your needs and your wants for journey analysis differ if you work for a hospital system versus a health insurance company, right? And so we will be talking a little bit about some of the provider challenges to overcome first, then switch to payer, and then take a look at how Adobe, from a product point of view, can help us overcome those challenges. On the provider side, it typically starts with data fragmentation and data ownership. That is a common challenge that needs to get overcome, right? We have electronic health record data that is fragmented, guarded, and typically owned by the clinical and the IT teams, not the marketing teams. Along the same notes, right? It's usually not one EHR system. If a hospital system grows through acquisitions, with every new site that you add to the system, you typically also inherit different EHR solutions or different versions of the same EHR solutions. So there's typically a very complicated EHR data landscape that we need to work with, not around, streamline, and then bring it in the context of data activation and data orchestration, which primarily happens with the Adobe ecosystem in this case, right? A lot of different EHR systems, a lot of different data ownerships. That makes identity resolution really hard. Sometimes we have deterministic identifiers. We are able to use and leverage an MRN number, but depends on the acquisition structure and the underlying data foundation of the respective hospital system. Sometimes a person can actually end up with, multiple MRNs. And so there's a lot of pre-work that can and should be done outside of the martech layer to just get a really good lay of the land about which data is generated by what system, what are some of the normalization scenarios that need to be accounted for? Think householding, think, spam trap email address versus the real email address, right? And also think guardians, caretakers, relationships, in addition to the patient profile. So it is complicated. It warrants a proper identity strategy. But once that is done, that is understood, the clinical data ownership teams are brought along for the ride and understand we're not looking to just replicate everything from the clinical side in the martech layer. We're only looking for the attributes that we actually would like to use and leverage to analyze the patient journey and also to orchestrate it and make it better. Once that change management and transformative conversation has happened, what we are seeing with our clients across the payer and provider space, there usually is a lot of excitement and willingness to tap into the data treasure within, the limitations and interpretations of HIPAA, obviously, to then create a better experience, positively contribute to the digital front door, and leverage tried and tested tactics and methodologies from other industries. Think cart abandonment logic for appointment scheduling to ultimately make the healthcare experience better in the first place. The last provider challenge that I want to call out is the unstructured data, right? A lot of healthcare data is not just simple, neat rows in a data set we can bring in. There's a lot of unstructured data and conversations happening. Think call scripts, right? Calling a call center or multiple call centers, needing the ability to actually parse the information, apply sentiment analysis on top of it. Previously, that was really, really complicated to do in the first place. It needed to be done outside of the martech platform. But I think Sander will probably hit on it a little bit. There is new ways that this can now be done within the Adobe Experience platform, so that we don't need to do all the pre-work outside the peripheral systems, and we can actually tap into the martech layer and the activation layer as much as we can. Now, flipping this over, those are the typical provider challenges. On the payer side, we obviously have similar challenges. There's also data silos, right? You have enrollment, the claims data, the call center data. I talked about the unstructured data. Typically sit in different systems owned by different teams. And so getting to the simple answer of what's actually positively contributing to the enrollment, open enrollment, is really hard. It's really difficult to get to, right? Data latency is usually in the rearview mirror. It takes time for the population health data to be populated, to be available for analysis, right? So there's a heavy focus on just the historical data, using that then to model and predict, the future. But it's most of the time just looking in the rearview mirror versus through the windshield on what's ahead. Payers are also a compliance target, a common big compliance target, right? So, if you're on the payer side, you're probably familiar with the ever-going lawsuits that are happening because someone fired a media pixel without, hooking it up to the consent management platform. Happens all the time. It's very common. But that just underlines the point that I want to convey is you are a big target in the payer space, so you really need the HIPAA compliant data foundation, not just at the martech layer, but beyond. Think about integrating consent, how you integrate preferences, and really unlock that flow of user preferences, user consent to the entire martech ecosystem, not just the analysis layer. And you are all under a lot of pressure, right? There's the ever-evolving regulatory requirements. Costs are escalating, margins are getting squeezed, and they put continued strain on already like short-staffed internal teams who are tasked with the analysis, with the maintenance, with the growth, and the maturity evolution of the martech stack. Thankfully, there are some things within our control, within the actual product that Adobe has been working on to help us increase some of the output, some of the velocity from teams using those platforms to analyze the patient journey. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Sander to walk us through some of the recent innovations within CX Enterprise Coworker.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Awesome. Well, let's talk a little bit about some of these AI capabilities. And Kevin mentioned, right, making it easier, moving faster. Cost is a big thing, right? So, Adobe has a broader agentic engine across the whole CX platform, and it's called CX Enterprise Coworker. And so this is going to automate workflows across Adobe products, maybe third parties, right? So what does this actually look like within CJA and where your data actually lives? So customer journey analytics is really what we're diving into with this feature and this capability. And a few of these main capabilities within CJA or that are related to is It's going to automate these analytic workflows across CJA, across these other CX enterprise applications, and then also third-party systems. So you can think of this as maybe an analyst that doesn't stop at, well, here's the data, right? It takes a question, does the digging, hands you a finished workflow, and it's pulling from CJA and your other CX enterprise applications. So you ask a question, right? It runs the whole thing end to end. It also understands your CJA data model, your business context. And so it's not guessing at your schema. So when I say context, I mean business logic, attribution, any rules or changes that are applied to the data itself, maybe within CJA, within derived fields or data views. So an example would be like maybe someone asks which pages get the most traffic before a new patient books, and it already knows your healthcare company's, page taxonomy, CJA data model well enough to really answer this question without setting up or mapping that step first. So a lot around the context that really adds that value to coworker. And then there's a deep reasoning and exploratory analysis. So ask a real business question, turns that into an actual investigation. This means you can answer the why, and which is what most people really ask after they get a result. You can think about naturally what happens first when you get into an LLM or natural language interface, right? Typically, you're starting with insights. Tell me how this, historically has happened, or what was the result, or what's the measurement on that, and then going into why, right? So root cause analysis really is walking you through its own thinking step by step, so you can see exactly how it gets to that answer. And with trustworthy being a really large topic with AI, right? A major concern, right? This is what allows you to show your work, really how it allows you to trust the results. Even if someone later on asks, well, how do we know that? You can show them right within CJA itself, right within Coworker too.
That's really interesting, Sander. Like thinking on the fly here about our two target audiences, right? On the provider side, questions could range from, how is the appointment scheduling flow working for us, right? Like where in the flow or funnel are anonymous, visitors that we want to convert into patients dropping off, or if you see a certain spike or dip in scheduled appointments, for instance, you don't need to stop there and then report on the percent over or under or the deviation from kind of the expected threshold. You also have the ability to go further and ask questions for how does it differ across regions? How does it differ across specialties, maybe providers, etc. So if you have been in customer journey analytics and you love the drag and drop feel of the analysis workspace canvas, think of this as like a supercharging tool that helps you get to the why faster. It is still super fun to build reports, right? But not everyone has the time or the mandate to actually build up the muscle memory to become a power user in the analysis platform. So this really further democratizes the time to insights for analysts and those who aspire to be analysts within the organization. What I personally love about it, it won't just spit you back an answer, right? It will also then create the scaffolding of the underlying report and customer journey analytics. So you can actually hand it over to the analyst, have the analyst double check it before you then further like evangelize the insight or use the insight to then, kick off an activation chain, right? Because enterprise coworker is not just for analytics. It also spans some of the more activation related solutions like real-time CDP and journey optimizer. So this is super exciting. And, I'm sure the folks on the call are already thinking about business questions that take forever to answer and leveraging this great tool to get to answers faster.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about what really sets us apart instead of just maybe querying data in a data warehouse, right, is CJA applies all that processing, all that enrichment to the data to make it more accurate. So it applies your business logic, applies attribution, and really any types of changes that you might want to make to the data. That way, when you're asking the questions within Coworker, it has all that context and is able to really provide you with the most accurate answer possible. So I think that's what really sets it apart and why it's really trustworthy is, one, it shows the work, but two, it's all this post-process data that makes it as accurate as possible.
So, Sandra, I'm really excited from the practitioner lens. This is kind of changing the interface and how we interact with the data. We see the same thing on the consumer and patient side, right? Like the way patients get to information is massively changing. You're already thinking along the lines of bringing those LLM insights and the brand visibility into the analytics interface. Could you walk us through the integration with brand visibility?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, you want to skip ahead too? Yeah, go back one. So, right, with Coworker, it's about getting the answers out of the data that you already have, right? This next capability is CGA's integration with Adobe Brand Visibility. So it's our geo solution, our generative engine optimization solution. And it's really about understanding this newer, and it's often like an invisible source of traffic, which is AI agents, LLMs, right? So more people are starting their care journey maybe by asking about LLMs about symptoms or treatment options. What's the best hospital for X? I mean, I know myself whenever have anything come up, I definitely go straight into an LLM, ChatGPT or Claude and ask. And so they do this before you ever land on a healthcare's website or a health system's website, right? And so platforms are becoming more of a referral source. And this is what we are calling the dark funnel, like this new term around the dark funnel. It's where the research decision making is happening, right? And it's before someone's even showing up in your analytics. And so, what this integration does is really help solve for that challenge by bringing that AI activity into your customer analytics view. So, it's a bidirectional integration between CJA and Adobe Brand Visibility. And what it does is you're able to ingest that LLM agent activity directly into CGA from brand visibility. And this is aggregate and it's non-PII data. So I know maybe some people in the audience might like hearing that, right? Because it's not identified, right? There's no identifiers coming with that with this type of activity. Then you can analyze that alongside maybe your business performance, your on-site behavior, and you can send that data back to Adobe Brand Visibility so that maybe site and content can be optimized for real outcomes. So it's sending the performance data when a human actually lands on your site, goes through any of the downstream customer journey, any outcomes. That's the data that's being sent out to Adobe Brand Visibility. So it's a bidirectional integration, lots of value coming into CJA, lots of value flowing into brand visibility. And so I think, Kevin, here, I mean, this is where I wanted to stop and ask you, like, how much are healthcare companies thinking about visibility inside Claude, inside ChatGPT, maybe when somebody's researching symptoms or providers?
Yeah, I think short answer, a lot, right? What we've seen with our clients, as well as prospective clients that we're talking to, is there's definitely the theme of strategic partnerships and alliances, to develop standards to leverage the LLMs for more HIPAA purposes, right? For more diagnostic purposes. So there's a very like methodical and intentional conversation happening at the highest levels from those organizations, payers and providers, starting partnership conversations with the major LLM providers, also coming together, aligning on certain standards. Then, if we switch altitude, right, from the leadership and strategic level more to the marketing operational side of things, you definitely see, organizations being more intentional around their GEO strategy, right? Optimizing content, as well as the technology for better indexability in the large language models. And there is a demand for this new category of software that monitors your brand visibility, how you show up for certain queries, similar to what we've seen in the SEO world about 2 decades ago when it really just took off, and then tools emerged and quality indicators were developed, then abandoned, and then new ones entered the picture. And so I predict that we'll see a similar like maturing of this industry, of the standards, of the partnerships, and also of the toolings. What excites me a lot is that, you guys at Adobe, you have both sides of the house, right? You have customer journey analytics, which can house the HIPAA touch points, the explicit data about a patient, about a prospect. But now, as you said, having the ability to correlate that with the aggregate brand visibility, which is not centered around Sandra Jones and Kevin Hawk, the patient, but more about, the organization, right? Like the hospital system, and then being able to correlate those queries with the actual customer journeys that we can measure. It's tremendously helpful to make more informed business decisions.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, you can move to the next slide. So it's, a lot of questions you get is like, what does this data mean? What does this telemetry data do? And so here's a few potential like questions or use cases that you could, use in CJA with this type of data from Adobe Brand Visibility. And Karen, you asked a question about, is this SEMrush? Is it similar? And so what Adobe Brand Visibility does is it combines both previously the LLM Optimizer product with SEMrush into a single product. So it has the indexing, the bot crawler data, along with the optimizations, including the data from SEMrush. So that's what Adobe Brand Visibility does. And again, that data coming into CJA, right? With it, you can measure now this bot and crawler activity alongside your traditional channel. So you're maybe identifying pages that are being heavily consumed by LLM crawlers, but aren't actually converting to human visitors, or you can detect where LLM agent requests are like failing with, critical pages or failing errors with critical, pricing pages or anything like that. So those are a few use cases. Actually, if we move into the next slide, I want to talk through maybe a few scenarios that actually make this, more real. And the first one is content investment. So, say there's a set of pages that are getting heavily AI crawler attention, right? So they're getting hit a lot by the LLM crawlers, indexing, but the marketing team, they can't tell if that traffic is worth doubling the content budget on, right? Is it worth it? So if you join these LLM request counts, agent type, and the URL to maybe the sessions or any types of conversions like appointment requests, you do this at the page level, you can confirm whether the AI crawlers are heavily hitting those pages and whether, actual patient conversions, maybe that's staying flat. And this is going to let marketing know maybe where to redirect the next content sprint to underexposed pages that are already converting instead of like maybe doubling down where AI has already found that content. The next one's around the channel prioritization. So leadership, say they want to know if optimization for AI engines is worth it. And if so, which engine do we prioritize first? And joining this LLM refer traffic to revenue, appointment requests, you name it, and registrations and engagement really at that page level. This is going to reveal which AI engines referred visitors are actually converting to meaningfully higher rates. And that way you can prioritize spend, which ones to optimize first. And then last is a experience reliability, right? So engineering, maybe they don't know whether AI crawlers are failing or getting blocked on high value pages like a provider directory or scheduling flow. So they can't prioritize maybe these fixes, right? They're kind of flying blind in that situation. And if you're joining this LLM error count, error rate, there's a time to first byte, so a time metric there to a specific page. That will tell you like which high value URLs are failing for the AI agents, maybe why, and this will allow engineering to really fix what matters most instead of guessing there. So guess I'll stop there. I mean, Kevin, what's your reaction to these use cases? Do you see them being related to the health industry? Curious to hear your opinion on these.
It's honestly all the above, right? Like what's beautiful about those use cases is they apply to all industries because, content, content generation, scaling personalization is top of mind, not just for the healthcare industry, but others as well. Now, the age-old question of should I spend an incremental dollar in a certain channel? Now we just have new channels in the mix that need that question answered. And then also using it reliably to optimize the experience is also something that applies to healthcare and beyond. So I think it's safe to say that the key takeaways from today's conversation were definitely yes, healthcare data is fragmented, right? Data is owned across different systems and teams, so we need to come together, right? It takes tooling, HIPAA compliant tooling, but it also takes a little bit of change management between teams, between data owners, but it is possible to achieve to bring that data together. DJA is the HIPAA-ready analysis foundation built on top of the Adobe Experience platform that can house that data and connect the engagement data to the encounter data to the patient data so we can actually get to that end-to-end patient journey analysis from acquisition all the way to search and schedule, initial encounter, follow-up, cross and upsell. It typically does take an experienced partner who understands both sides of the house, the strategy as well as the technology, to really be that change agent, to bring together, all the respective parties, system owners, and sometimes play marriage counselor between the two or between the many organizations and teams within an organization to get to the joint vision of unlocking the end-to-end patient visibility. And thankfully, while we have a lot of margin pressure, Adobe is putting a lot of investment in the AI innovation to help analysts and the tool power users increase their output and further democratize the insights and the answers that the data can provide.
Yeah, I really see that last point as, two major pieces to it, right? There's AI that really helps, accelerate insights, accelerate decision making within an organization. But then there's also AI that is creating this new part of the customer journey that must be measured, must be part of your customer analysis, right? Your decision making. So there's a lot of this investment that's going into both of these, right? Within Coworker, I think it's really the experience that you expect out of a natural language interface. So highly recommend that you reach out to your Adobe reps and ask about Coworker. But at the same time, LLM insights with the integration with Adobe Brand Visibility, right? This idea about bringing in that AI visibility data into your customer analysis, right? All is starting to really need to happen and really part of your overall decision making.
Thank you so much, Sander. And we're right at time here at the bottom of the hour. Thank you so much to you, Sander, and also to everyone who dialed in for the 30. Um, we really appreciate your time. I know you have busy days and schedules to get back to, so thank you all for joining. We'll be sharing the webinar, the recording, as well as the main takeaways, so you can spread the good words. Thank you all for joining. Have a great rest of your week, and see you again soon.
Thank you all.